So we went over kind of the history of genocide, and now we're going to start talking about the 10 different stages of genocide. Um, Genocide is essentially a process. It develops in 10 stages. These 10 stages are predictable, um, but not inevitable, which means that we can predict they're going to happen, aka we can stop them uh, before they happen. Um, Unfortunately, genocides are frequently um, defined after the fact. So it's more of a hindsight is 2020 kind of thing. Um, the later stages must be preceded or must come after the earlier stages, but the earlier stages continue to operate throughout the process. So it's not like one stage ends and the next one begins. It's more like you're adding harmony on top. Harmony is not the greatest vocab choice for this topic, but you guys know what I mean. Um, the first two stages actually happen pretty much all the time, just based on human nature. The first stage is called classification, and that is distinguishing or categorizing people into us and them by ethnicity, race, religion, or nationality. Basically, it's creating categories of people. So it's not in and of itself a bad thing. I mean, we have rivalries like Red Knights and Stars, or Catholics and Lutherans, right? But when it becomes a one identity versus another and one is superior to the other, that's when we start devolving towards those later stages. We can kind of predict or at least tell where they're going to be more probability for genocide, and they're likely in places with high rates of segregation within their society already, because it makes it easier to move on to those stages. So Rwanda, after colonialism, Rwanda was left with two tribes. And because there were only two tribes, it was a really simple power struggle without much complication. And that's why it escalated as quickly as it did. So an example from Maus, which we're going to start next week, obviously the Germans or the Aryans, the Nazis, versus the minorities or the Jews, Gypsies, and other persecuted groups. The second stage is symbolization. Like classification, it is taking those groups and assigning symbols to them. So again, not always negative. You can have, for instance, the Catholic symbol would be a crucifix. It's something where you see that symbol and it is immediately linked to a broader concept or a broader idea. So the Star of David would be Judaism, but again, in Maus or in the Holocaust, it would be that patch with the Star of David on it, that yellow patch that they would have to wear on their clothing. That would be the symbolization. And that is when we start getting down towards discrimination and such. And then the crescent moon and star for Islam. Or the red knight for Benilde St. Margaret's. And like I said earlier, classification and symbolization are universally human. It's just part of human nature. 99% of the time, it does not result in genocide. It's just that 1% or less where it starts devolving down the line, and we start hitting those later stages.